You're listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast.
And we are live, everybody. Well, at least I think we're live this week. We weren't live last week. Are you live, Chris?
I'm here.
Don't do that to me.
You have me worried then.
Lee, are you live this week?
I think so. I think just about looking at it. I think all systems go at the moment.
Okay, do you know we're not going to address the elephant in the room. Obviously, those.
Where is it?
Well, those that are like really addicted to this podcast and can't get enough of it. We can only apologise for the big elephant-sized dump that we left last week instead of a podcast. There was no podcast last week because
Well, there was.
We'd planned.
There was a podcast. We recorded a podcast.
We were there.
The listeners
Fortunately,
weren't.
our listeners weren't. Yeah. So what happened, ladies and gentlemen, of this podcast community that we've created, was we decided. Well, we didn't decide. We were rehearsing with the show last week. We were allowed out. Old Bojo said, yes, you can go out and do things within reason and certain legal limits, which meant we could rehearse.
Woo!
So, yeah, exactly. We hadn't rehearsed for about 5 months, and God, it showed. No, anyway, we hadn't rehearsed for about 5 months, and we went and we did a COVID-safe rehearsal. And on the way, we thought, let's do the podcast on the way to the rehearsal, and then on the way back from the rehearsal. And the way there worked out quite fine. There was a few audio issues, you know. I mean, we were recording from the mini tour bus, so that was a bit, had its challenges with background noise and what have you, but we kind of got there. But on the way back, for some reason, my audio just took a dump. It didn't work, did it?
Computer said no, didn't it?
The computer said no. So we do apologise for the gap in your podcast life.
It was a
from last
fantastic
week.
episode. We'll tell you that much. That's all you need to know. We
Probably the best
probably
episode
the
we've
best
ever
yet,
done,
yeah.
actually. Yeah.
We introduced
Best we've
new
ever done.
features such as Spot the Motorhomes and how many Grockles are on their way into Weymouth. So they'll be
Do you
returning
know, I
again.
didn't have a rant. I didn't have a rant,
did
but
have
I
a
think I
rant.
might have.
You did?
I did last week.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It lasted for
I
like
did.
15 minutes. 2 minutes of caravans.
And the podcast was like, 40 minutes of me ranting on about motorhomes,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
5 minutes of guitars.
Well, it was. Excuse the pun, but it was a road test for what we hope to do in the future when we do get back out there gigging, and we certainly learned that at the moment we're not ready for that. So we're back here on Zoom this evening, which feels somewhat more comfortable. It did feel slightly strange to actually be in the same space as each other while we were doing one of these. Bit weird.
Well, you know why? It's probably because we hadn't washed.
Oh, there is that. That'll
Yeah,
explain the
I mean-
smell.
Yeah, I mean, in my studio, all it basically smells of is port and cheese.
Well, not
I'm not
too
used to
dissimilar
other-
from the van.
I'm not used to other people's port and cheese, and it was a little bit boring from my point of view, if I'm honest, because I was sober. I was driving.
Well, but on that note, you'll note that I'm actually drinking water at the moment.
Oh,
But that's because
are you on antibiotics?
No,
or
that's
something?
because I've already been to the pub. I'm podcasting post pub.
Oh, mate.
Because
Oh,
that's
dear.
the biggest
So,
news, that we're now allowed to go to the pub. So I've been there. Woo!
do you know what? Supposedly, I'm the biggest drinker in the show, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where people
Not
get
anymore.
that from, but I've not even been to a pub yet. Don't bother me.
I've been
Not
to a
bothered.
few. Been to a few.
Well, no, you have.
I've come back from
But
the pub just to do this. Oh, and I need to say now, for the record, I've got an
Yeah.
Indian takeaway turning up soon. So as soon as that doorbell goes, I'm out of here, fellas.
Sounds like life is good in the Lee household.
That's brilliant.
Well, you know,
That's
the
it.
sun's
It's good.
shining.
Yeah. So tomorrow, it'll be great. A bit hungover and stinking of garlic.
Yeah,
Excellent.
You know, I haven't got a gig to go to, so why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, that's good. Have you got anything turning up, Chris?
Oh, no, not tonight. Not tonight. I did have fish and chips yesterday. That was pretty nice.
Mm.
That was good.
I'm a local chip. He does halloumi, battered halloumi and chips. That's really
Ooh,
nice.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Well,
it
we've
is.
drifted straight into our normal territory, discussing
Yeah.
anything but music. We've talked about
Anything
pubs,
but music. Yeah.
motorhomes,
Yeah. Okay.
food. In all seriousness, though, we've actually got 2 rehearsals in since last podcast now, haven't we? Because we did the
Yeah.
one where the failed podcast happened, but we also did one yesterday, which was cool. So things are kind of happening again in camp guitar heroes.
They are,
is,
yeah,
yeah.
they are indeed. And I'm not going to say too much at all about this yet, but there's a new project looming as well, which I'm not going to say anything, and it's going to be months before I'm allowed to. But I want to tease everybody first. But there's a new it involves a guitar build as well, and part of it arrived today.
It did.
So
It did.
that's all I'm going to say on
You
that matter.
you tease, Phil.
Oh, I'm
Tease
such
too
a
much.
tease. Oh man,
I'll
I'm
tell you
so
what.
clickbait.
You are the worst though, Phil. When it comes to things like that, he is like a child. Like if you tell him he can't tell anyone, he's just fit to burst within about 10 minutes. How many times, Chris, already has Phil said, "Right, I really shouldn't tell you this," but and then he tells you something.
We've got you and me, Lee. We've got to contain so many secrets.
It's actually none of it actually is going to happen. I just want to see what you two will do.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's all a big test. You see,
What's
going to
happen,
I just
Phil,
want to see
is-
which one I'm going to leave my strap to.
What's going to happen, Phil? Someone's going to come up to you and say, "Look, Phil, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but so and so's happening." You're like, and it's all originated from you.
Yeah, probably it'll all come back to me, won't it? Yeah. Anyway, today's podcast. Let's get back on topic. Today's podcast is all about squirrels. Oh no, sorry, we drifted again, didn't we?
You drifted
No.
into your other podcast there, Phil.
The other podcast that I do. Yeah.
How many
No, today-
how many did you see today whilst urinating on your lawn?
I've quit urinating on my lawn.
Oh, have you?
Because I can't be bothered anymore. It's stupid, and it's, to be honest, no, I'll tell you really, it's daylight. Neighbours don't like it. It's a lot lighter at night. You know?
You've got new neighbours as well, haven't you? So,
Oh,
hi
not yet.
guys, hi.
Yeah, I'm saving that. I'm going to do the National Lampoons thing when they start loading the furniture and what have you. I'm going to go out in the garden and take a pee in my dressing gown and go, shit, it was full. Anyway, today we are talking about the one, the only, probably one of the things that kicked it all off, the Fender Telecaster. Ooh. And we're quite interested about this. Oh, there he goes.
Twangy.
I like it. The interesting thing about this is we've all got a Telecaster with us tonight, and they're all very much the same, yet totally different, which is great. The great thing about Telecasters, and no doubt Lee's got lots of information he's going to share with us.
Well, if you want to go straight into it, someone needs to cue my music because I have come
Do you know
prepared
what?
with notes as
Well, to be
usual.
honest, it seems the most logical place to start is a little bit of history of the Telecaster.
Start at the very beginning. Absolutely
the
right,
beginning.
Chris.
So
Okay, so
go on,
there we
Phil,
go.
you do it.
Go for it.
you do it.
Oh, shall I do it?
You do
Okay.
it. No,
okay.
wait,
Well,
I'll do
ladies
it.
and
I'll do it. No,
Oh,
go
you
on.
wanna
No,
do
go
it?
on. You do it.
Okay. Oh, what's up with him tonight? Have you put a sugar in your tea tonight, in your green tea? He's hyper. Look. Oh, no, he's on the brandy. That's good. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, tonight there will be no Phil's rant because I've got a feeling this is going to be a good one. So no Phil's rant, nothing about pulling the plug out of my bathtub tonight.
have a
No,
Chris- I
ladies
have a
and
Chris-
gentlemen.
That's one of them. That's one of them.
Wait, write that down.
Ladies-
What's the date?
Oh, wait,
Ladies and
this
gentlemen,
will
hang on. Oh my God.
Wait, hang on a second.
People won't actually
This
know
has
what we're
gone
on
to
about because
shit.
we're referring to something that happened in the van podcast that never made it out. So we're gonna branch out into collecting some of Phil's little phrases and slogans. And if you eventually do get to come to a show and we actually get to put some merch out when that's possible, we might branch into having a section of show merch and a section of podcast merch, which has got some of Phil's classic sayings.
Well, I'm
Chris?
thinking t-shirts.
Which was your favourite?
What really chews my toffee?
What really
I wanna
blows
get that
my
on
candle out?
I don't know what you're talking about.
And what really pulls the plug out of my bath? Apparently that's today's. So, well, we missed a week, but we're back on form.
Oh, dear. Ladies and gentlemen, let's cue the music.
What will we learn today in Lessons with Lee? Pay attention. 1940s California, and a chap called Leo Fender worked in a radio repair shop, Fender's Radio Service, repairing and designing amps and pickups, amongst other things. At the time, it was mainly for semi-acoustic guitars, lap steels, and mandolins. But he had, in that repair shop, he had a kind of bodged wooden guitar type thing that he really just used to test pickups. People would come in and he would do repairs. Anyway, this contraption that he had got a bit of a reputation for itself, and people thought it sounded quite good. So country players would ask Leo if they could borrow said contraption, take it out on a gig, and it got a bit of a reputation. So Leo got thinking, maybe there's something in this. And he went on to build what was the first prototype of, well, unnamed Fender guitar at the time, the first solid body guitar of its kind. Have you guys seen the proto Telecaster, by the way?
I have, yeah.
You have?
Yeah, it's an odd looking thing. The white thing with the
That's the one.
A 3-a-side headstock, hasn't it?
Correct. Actually, I played a guitar for a while that I borrowed off my uncle. Have you ever seen a Shergold Masquerader?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
When I saw the picture of this Tele prototype today, it reminded me of that. It's got this sort of clubby headstock with the 3-a-side, and it's very much a Telecaster shape. But anyway, I think Leo kind of got the inspiration from, if you look at a Telecaster, it's like a slimmed down Dreadnought acoustic. It's got that single cutaway. He
designed as
a
a Hawaiian steel guitar, wasn't it, or something that they were making around 45 or something like that, wouldn't it, or something?
Put your hand up if you need to ask questions, Chris.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
You're going to be sent out in a minute.
You're going to be sent to the naughty corner.
No, you're right. The link there is that, like I said, in his repair shop, he was largely kind of repairing and servicing amps, radios, and lap steels. They were one of the electric instruments at the time. People had started developing electric pickups and looking at ways to make these instruments louder. And Leo actually I think he made lap steels at the time. They had the Fender Champion that became like their first instrument, and that's where he got his pickup that eventually moved on to the Telecaster. So anyway, he's messing around in the radio shop, doing all that kind of stuff, and his little gadgety gizmo thing gets some reputation. People start liking it. So he thinks, I'm going to have a go at this. There's something in this. Makes the prototype, which we've just been discussing. And that seems to go pretty well. So in 1950, things start getting serious for Fender, and we see the first proper Fender guitar, which was, of course, the Esquire. Designed in 1949 and released in 1950, designed by Leo Fender and George Fullerton. You know the significance of those names? Looking for gold stars here.
Is the Fullerton the factory that produced the models?
Leo Fender and George Fullerton. Leo and George, or should I say George and Leo?
G&L.
Correct.
Oh, there we go.
Correct. They are the G&L of the G&L guitar company that they moved on to when they parted ways with Fender. So, 1950 sees the introduction of the Esquire, and that is the single pickup Telecaster, if you will. Shortly after that, they said, we need more sounds, there's not enough versatility from this, and they slapped the neck pickup on it, and it became the Broadcaster. I think we actually had part of this lesson touched upon by our dear drummer friend, Alan. Did he not bring this up a few episodes ago?
He did, didn't he? He did, yeah.
So the legend has it, a lot of guitar players will know this, but it was introduced as the Broadcaster. Obviously, Leo's radio background, you can see where he came up with that name. But the Gretsch drum company at the time had a Broadcaster kit, and they started legal proceedings against Leo to say, you can't bring this out, you can't release an instrument with the same name, it's going to get confused with our drum kit. So in a panic, he basically just removed the name for the time being. He'd built some guitars, he wanted to sell them, but he didn't have a name, so he just took the decal off. And we have what is now known as the Nocaster.
Oh,
were you going to say it? Oh,
I put my hand up and everything. I knew that,
yeah.
sir.
Sorry, it was a bit of a glitch on Zoom. You put your hand up, but I saw the hand go up after I'd given the answer. Well, you can have a gold star anyway, because I know that you knew that. So,
thank you, sir.
So yeah, we know it as the Nocaster. That was an unofficial name, but it was called the Nocaster simply because it had no name for a brief period until it was renamed in September of 1951, and we arrive at the Telecaster 2 pickup version of the Esquire. He's developing those pickups that he was using on the Champion lap steel. And the original guitars, those original prototypes, some of the Esquires, they were made from pine, but he pretty quickly moved on to alder and swamp ash. And you mentioned about the 3-a-side thing, Phil. I read this online today. Do you know that Leo got the inspiration for the 6-a-side thing from Croatian stringed instruments that he'd seen?
Oh, wow, no, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. He was going to go down the 3-a-side. That was the logical thing at the time because everything was just acoustic guitars, Gibsons, Rickenbackers, everything was 3-a-side. And evidently he saw something far off and mysterious from the land of Croatia and said, that really works quite well.
Excellent.
So there we go.
I'm glad he did because 3-a-side Fenders don't feel right at all. Oh, I think Chris had his hand up there.
Yes, Taylor, you had your
I was
hand
going
up
to say,
there.
in 51, didn't obviously, in addition to the neck pickup, didn't they bring in a tone control as well when electronics modified as well?
The tone control was always on it.
It was always on it.
The pots were always there. They always had 2 pots, but there was about 3 or 4 variations of what that tone pot
I see.
did.
Okay.
Walker, you got your hand up.
I've got my hand up.
Yeah?
I've got my hand up.
Go for it.
Yeah, Chris, you may be confused with the tone and the switch because the selector switch on the Telecaster was the bridge pickup, and then in the middle position it went to the neck pickup, and then in what would be the neck position on the selector switch went to like this real boomy sort of sound.
Okay.
Boomy.
Yeah, they called it. I think it was called the dark tone. I think that's
Yeah,
what they
and
called
that. Do you know? Oh God, I'm getting into Lee's lessons here. Do you know why they did that?
No, you're going to tell me
just
that, won't
catch
you?
I'm going to tell you. The reason they did that is because they had like the T-chest basses and the upright basses and all things like that, and it was a way of making the guitar sound like an electric bass at the time.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually. If you look at those the Blackguard years, I guess 1950 through to sort of 1953, 1954, there is about 3 or 4 different variations of what that tone circuit did. It was always the format of 2 knobs and a selector switch, but it did go through a few things, like you say, Phil, with the dark tone was there for a while. You had almost like a blend pot at one point as well, which I think Keith Richards still uses on his whatever it's called, his 1953 Tele. And then eventually
Macauber.
That's the one. Another gold star.
Yeah.
Oh, Walker, you are.
I was actually watching.
Do you know as well, Keith Richards? He's not earned a penny from the Rolling Stones.
Hasn't he?
Really?
Did you know that? No, he's earned nothing because he literally plays with 5 strings. He can't afford 6.
Right, Walker, see me after.
Well, on that Keith Richards.
If you're having a curry, I'll be there.
On second thoughts, see me tomorrow. So yeah, and then obviously eventually, late 1951 and certainly 1952, we arrive at the Telecaster, as we know, which those of you at home cannot see, but I'm holding something that vaguely resembles that Blackguard 52 Tele.
Describe your Telecaster, Lee, then. Go on, describe it.
Well,
what have you got?
My Telecaster, thank you for asking, is part of the Road Worn series from Fender. So it's an aged guitar, but I've had this a number of years. I think it's one of the first year or second year Road Worn guitars in the kind of butterscotch, vintagey blonde finish. Typical early 50s Tele setup with just the 2 single coil pickups, the 3 brass saddles, 3-way selector, volume tone, maple neck, 6-a-side headstock, of course, and a black Bakelite pickguard. So
Yours is a bit special, though, isn't it?
Well, it's had it's had a few. I think it's a special guitar. I think a Telecaster is one of those guitars that they've either really got it or sometimes they just don't. But when they've got it, I think there's something in the simplicity of a Telecaster that just makes it able to be so much more. It's
not
so
hiding
stripped
anything,
down,
is it?
so simplistic, it's not hiding anything. And when you get a good one, you've got a guitar for life, and it gives everything you give it. It gives it back. And so this guitar, I've had it. I forget now. I've probably had it maybe 7, 8, maybe even more, maybe 9 years, and it's super resonant. It's got a really, really lovely, like thin nitro finish, which is was pretty warm when I got it, but is now really worn. The maple neck has virtually no finish on it, which has just aged even further and gone that real kind of dark, worn-in maple look now. I've messed around with pickups over the years, and now I've landed on a custom set that the wonderful Matt at Monty's Guitars made for me. And yeah, it just does the Tele thing. That brings us on to the conversation really of why and how is the Tele so good, because it never ceases to amaze me. I think I've probably said this before, but I'll say it again. Never ceases to amaze me that something that is now 70 years old is still, in many people's eyes, the best thing out there. Like, hasn't been beaten. I know there's all these different modifications and there's so many different variations and there's all these other amazing guitar companies. But when you look at like best-selling guitars year on year, obviously the Strat's up there, obviously the Les Paul's up there, but the Telecaster is always there. Over to you, Jack.
Yeah, for a good reason. A little bit of a brief history on my Telecaster.
Yours is very pretty, Phil. Very pretty.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'll get round to this one in a second, but my I've always been a Strat man. Like everybody knows, my first real guitar, real Fender was a Strat, but I've always loved the Tele. And I think one of my first experiences of the Telecaster was Status Quo. Great sound that they got. Excuse me. But when was I? I was probably 16 years old. I was on work experience. And this is one of the biggest regrets of my guitar history. Okay. I almost could do a rant on this because I was so stupid. I mean, stupid beyond stupidity. But I was lucky enough. I was on a work experience at my guitar teacher's place, and he had a recording studio, and he had a few guitars come in for sale because he's got loads of students. They used to get guitars in. Used to sell quite a lot of guitars as well for people. If you want to sell one, you put one there, and one of his students would probably buy it. It's probably me. But this one time, 2 Telecasters came in when I was on work experience. One of them was a 72 thin line with the humbuckers in it, quite well played. And another one was a blue. I won't say Lake Placid blue. It was like a dark. It's like Lake Placid but darker. I can't describe it. Midnight blue or something, I guess.
Okay.
Depending different lights, it was different shades. But it had a Seymour Duncan humbucker in the neck, and the bridge had been chopped, and it had. I was told it had a Gibson. I think it was a Gibson SG pickup in there. It was a 1972, and I picked it up and fell in love with it. I was just, oh man, I loved this guitar. And it was 325 quid, which back then was quite a lot of money, but it was still wow, for a 72. I don't suppose it was what we class as a proper vintage back then, but the 60s were vintage, and the 70s were virgin on vintage, maybe. But one thing that it had about it was, in fact, both of these guitars were ex Albert Lee guitars.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
something
they both
special,
belong
isn't
to
it?
Albert Lee. Yeah, and I sold it about 2 or 3 years later to MOT a van. Yeah, and I've been looking for it ever since. I've been looking for it ever since. But I loved that guitar, and what was really, really, I tell you what, man, I was gutted. Because there's a book out called the Fender Telecaster book. It's a blue book. You've probably seen it. Quite a famous book. And there's a picture of Albert Lee in there playing my Telecaster.
No.
I was like, oh no.
Oh man.
Oh man.
So
Maybe
and
if
then
you've still got pictures, Phil, maybe stick them online. If anyone's got it,
they are on my Instagram. Yeah, if you go on my Instagram, Phil, what am I? Phil Walker guitar or guitarist? I can never remember.
Guitar. Phil
Walker guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll see a picture of me with this blue Telecaster when I was 16 years old. So yeah, that's it.
Wow.
And yeah, so and then I got a '74 Telecaster a few years later, which needed a refret badly. Didn't sound great. It was heavy. It was beat up, but made a bit of money on it when I sold it. I've had. Then I got a really nice Telecaster, which I had leather bound, and it's a Mexican classic, the '50s classic series.
Yeah.
It was a really nice guitar. And then I had like the Waylon Jennings type thing. I had this covered in leather, and that's on the Instagram. So that's the one that Albert Lee actually signed.
Yes.
The leather
cool, isn't it?
Telecaster. And then a few years ago, some Herbert in a music shop sold me a Brad Paisley signature guitar.
Hey, come on! There wasn't much selling involved in that one.
No, there wasn't. Once I found out Brad Paisley was doing a signature guitar, I said, I don't care if it plays like an absolute toilet seat. I'm having it. I don't care. So I'm a big Paisley fan, and Lee put an order in for me, and he teased me with it because when it arrived, I think I had to wait a few months for it.
Yeah.
And when it arrived, he literally sent me a message on a text message, and he just sent me a little bit of the finish, and I was like, I was down there. In fact, there's a video on YouTube of me unboxing it in Absolute Music.
There is. That's weird, isn't it? Now there's a flashback.
Yeah.
Well, we were in
exactly.
Absolute the other day, and obviously they got is there like a new version of this guitar out?
Yes.
They have. It's got the secret agent pickups in it, which is this. I mean, mine. I'll just describe mine. It's a Marmite guitar. Is mine. It's a Rode one, which I'm not usually a big fan of, but this one's done particularly tasteful. But it's a silver tasteful. I'm just about to describe it. It's a silver sparkle finish.
With a Paisley pickguard.
With a Paisley pickguard. That's really, and it's got the biggest neck I've ever played in my life. It's got it's a big, chunky, heavy V-neck, and that sounds disgusting. And that was the only thing that was putting me off it when I ordered it. I was thinking, oh man, I hope I like that neck. But do you know what? Brad Paisley is one clever bloke, because he said when you hold your hand like you're holding a neck on a guitar, you get this natural shape, and he's shaped the neck to that natural shape. And yes, it is really.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So he designed this with Fender, and it's brilliant. It's got a '64 bridge pickup in there, and it's got a twisted Tele neck pickup. I don't know what twisted means. To be honest, I don't care. It's just good. And I'm just going to play a little bit of it, because this is the most Tele sounding Tele. I've been recording this week. I've been doing some work for somebody. I've had some work, boys. And it's recording some country guitar stuff. And do you know what? This Tele's just awesome. It's like, I'll just play a little bit of it. I mean, that's just as Tele as it
Sounds
gets.
great,
isn't it?
That is.
It's awesome.
Well, I was going to say, before you tell us about yours, I'll just play mine, then we've got a comparison between the two.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
You guys gone clean, have you?
Sorry?
You guys gone for like a clean preset?
This is clean just for now, but I was going to... so this is kind of like the middle position. Because when I had the pickups made, I talking of 52s, they're such iconic guitars, but those sounds, in my opinion, these days are a little bit unusable, because you have that really, really bright bridge pickup, but you have that super dark neck pickup. So when I said to Matt about making these pickups, I sent him some sort of sound samples. One of the references was Robin Ford. His 1960 Telecaster, you hear him play that. I mean, obviously his playing's fantastic, but the tone of it is great, particularly the neck pickup. It's got this very kind of hollow woodiness to it that's almost a bit stratty. Doesn't help, because at the moment we've all got, I imagine we've all got pretty dead strings, because there's no point in changing your strings. But
Not me.
And I didn't want a really shrill bridge pickup as well, because when you kick on a bit of gain, that might sound good for clean, but I wanted it to still be kind of like soft and smooth. So it was just a case of kind of taming the two a little bit. So when you put on a bit of drive, it can still do that, and it can still kind of. Which to me is the selling point of a Tele. It kind of fits.
Just between both your examples, obviously we did an episode on the Tele like really early on when we started this podcast, and I mentioned about this Tele being my favorite guitar because it's so versatile, and obviously you can hear that just through your playing demos there. That clean country sound, straight as far as that heavy rock tone that you had there, Lee. They're just so versatile.
Yeah. Well, with a decent set of pickups and a good Tele, and just those three controls, three-way selector, a volume, and I mean you can go from real bright, and then just. And you've kind of got those.
Yeah.
Oh man, just.
And then of course you can do the.
Yeah.
Oh, Phil, explain what you're doing there. That sounds really cool. I like that.
Basically, using the tone as a wah-wah, and because it's a great big honking tone knob, you can really you can go mad at it. Hours of fun.
Ooh, that's quite cool, that.
Yeah.
That sounds
so sorry
great.
to all the listeners out there that now all they can hear is wow, wow, wow.
Sounds like an episode of Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah.
You'd never get a gig with Adele. Apparently, she hates wah wah. So.
But that, I love that. Those real funky.
Yeah. And of course, don't forget. I mean, this is on country setting, right? Right, and then just with like you say, go to the neck pickup. Let's go blues.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
they're great.
So good.
You're listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast.
Chris, what are you playing?
So, ladies and gentlemen, the model I'm playing today is a Highway 1 model. It's from the Highway 1 series. I'm just having a look at the year. 2003. They started in 2002, this Highway 1 series. So at this time, I think they were like the lowest entry, like kind of USA models, like a bit like the American USA specials. I think that they've got now. I think they're still currently in production still, but quite sought after now. Actually, these models. This one is a limited edition. This is what they call the Texas model, I think. So it's basically just a 50s reproduction. Isn't the butterscotch finish? It's like a sunburst, but it's got like a green tinge to the finish.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like a two-tone sunburst type.
Yeah, it is, with a slight green tinge to it. It's kind of strange. One-piece body.
It's mouldy.
It does look mouldy, yeah. It's
just needs a clean, Chris. That's what that is.
Oh, I know. It's a one-piece body as well, which is nice.
Okay.
Maple neck. And what's interesting about this is a 12-inch radius on this neck. So it feels very much like my Les Paul. Slightly longer fretboard, but yeah, it's a lot flatter than your kind of standard Telecaster necks.
What pickups?
Pickups. I don't actually know. They everything's stock on this guitar. Everything just works. So I didn't really feel the need to replace anything. I think they're hot Texas pickups or something. Quite high output. It's actually louder than my Les Paul. But
Are they called Texas Specials or something?
Oh, it could be.
I might be wrong.
There might well be. They're very hot. I know that. Quite loud. Other than that, I don't really. Maple neck on it, obviously. Anyone who obviously can't see this, it's a maple neck, white guard on it, which is not original actually.
So what was it?
I don't know. This came on the guitar, but the guy said it's been replaced. So it looks.
Oh, so a
Interesting.
white one was on it, but it's
Yeah, it's been replaced with another one apparently. So
Interesting on the early Telecasters, going back to when we were talking about the 50s. They were just one-piece maple necks, weren't they? The
Yeah.
fretboard, they had no truss rod, like the early ones. They had no truss rod, and
right.
yeah, and therefore no need for a fretboard, as in a separate piece of wood.
No.
No skunk stripe, no fretboard. It was just simply carved out of one piece of wood. And again, I think that was why Leo went for that. You look at the Telecaster, and it's got quite a narrow headstock. It's barely that much wider than the actual fretboard itself,
Yeah.
to help with him carving it out of a single piece of
Mhm.
wood,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
was
Mm.
cool.
And yeah, this has got this is one piece maple neck, obviously. But I do have the skunk stripe on the back, and the string tree as well. One of those round ones, not like the
Yeah.
I don't know what they're called.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
round. But obviously,
yeah.
my truss rod access is actually the headstock, which I actually prefer. It's way more practical. You don't have to take the neck off for this one.
Mine's at the heel.
It sounds good. It's got 3 brass saddles on it. Yeah, 3-way switch.
You know, Chris, I don't actually use the string tree on my guitars.
I've
take it
noticed
out
that.
of
I
them.
noticed you've actually on your Strat. Haven't you taken them off completely? Haven't you? Or they just
Yeah.
sit on top? Or
No, I've taken them off completely. Yeah, yeah.
But-
The nuts on my guitars are so well cut. Thank you, Joe and Robin at Absolute Music. But there's no need to put no need to put them under the string tree, which just helps
No.
with tuning. And
Well,
what have you.
that is one of the other great things about a Telecaster, is the tuning stability.
oh,
hell yeah.
He just got it right. Those my favourite tuners. I think we all love these tuners. The old vintage style. Cut the string
ones
and
the string
push it
goes
in the hole.
because it doesn't shred
Amazing.
your guitar case, and if you pick up your guitar, you don't catch your hand on the string ends or anything.
You
You
can-
know.
You can just
Yeah.
they're just great. I pull mine out of the case or off the rack, and they just stay
Yeah.
in tune. That 3 saddle setup is just so simple.
But like you said,
Um,
everything about the guitar, it's simple. It works, and do you know that they just got it right when they come up with a design. It was, and that's why it's never changed. The design hasn't changed. There's been variants of this model in terms of like color. Certain aesthetics have changed, but
But
main
that
model-
is why I think there has been so many variations and so many successful variations,
yes,
because the base starting point is such a, and I think this is where its charm lies, is such a good canvas for
Mm.
anyone. It fits into so many different genres because it doesn't do too much for you.
yeah,
The more you put on a guitar, the more niche you make it, the more bells and whistles it
Of
has, the
course,
further
yeah.
you force it down a particular avenue that it then cannot come
Yeah.
back from. Where the
You mean
Tele-
like John Mayer's PRS with about 47 switches on it?
just you think of anything that's more kind of like deluxe, elaborate, custom.
Yes.
The more pickups you give it, the more sounds, in inverted
it's a bit
commas.
like with the Les Paul when they had all the pull switches and stuff. It just suddenly become too versatile. You kind of lose that charm of a Les Paul. And
But think about variations of a Telecaster. So think about the Telecaster Custom and the Deluxe. Works amazing.
Yeah,
a
but there
Telecaster with humbuckers, fantastic. Think
Yeah.
about a Thin Line. What other solid body guitar works like that? That's a great
Mm.
guitar. Like just
Exactly,
taking a
yeah.
Telecaster
Yeah.
and making it more resonant. It's
Actually,
nice.
do you know what they did with mine, with this Paisley Telecaster? Oh, 2 things I've got to mention about it is, I hope I've got this right. The wood is, well, no, I've got it right, I just don't know how to pronounce it. The wood is Palowina?
Palowina, yeah.
Palonia?
I think it's
yeah?
Palowino. It's spelt like that.
because like your
And-
picks, Phil, that guitar will fly away.
It is. This guitar, right? This guitar weighs 5.4
So light.
ounces.
Yeah,
Yeah, five pounds 4 ounces. Sorry, it's amazing. It's just a great. And what they've done is it's got the 3 saddle bridge, but they've. I'm just trying to look here on the A. the G and the B, they've made it so you can actually alter the intonation actually on the brass saddle.
Right.
And that's
Wow.
just fantastic. What a great little idea. You can't tell. You've got to really look at it to see that.
I see.
But I'm thinking that's a great little upgrade for this.
But
Yeah,
but the amazing thing there is that, in spite of all those little modifications and the variations of Telecaster that we've seen over the years, if you just come back to this standard, so if we go onto Fender's website now and just look at an American standard, or I think it's an American professional now, isn't it? Look at that and actually look how much has varied, considering that 70 years,
Yeah, it's
since
amazing.
this original incarnation. It's amazing, and it's still top shelf. It's not like old hat or vintage or retro. It's still like
no.
the thing, that guitar players lust over. And interestingly, it has been. I've got a list here. I was going to read you out some names. I went on Google and I just started going down the rabbit hole of guitar players. And when you actually see these names stacked up and look at all the different genres that it's found itself in, what's really cool is that you've got people who are proper guitar players, guys like Danny Gatton and Albert Lee, Vince Gill, people like that, Brad Paisley. But you've also got people who are kind of like the underdogs, the people who are your Joe Strummers. Then they're sort of like the anti-heroes. They're not going to be into like guitar playing. The way the punk movement took it on, it's that sort of working class hero guitar as well, because it's so simple.
Well, you take like Bruce Springsteen is the perfect
Yeah.
icon for it. Like Born to Run is that the album? Him just on the front with his Tele.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome. But obviously, like you said, Lee, it expands as far as jazz. You've got guys like Mike Stern, Robin.
Yeah.
Robin Ford uses the Tele as well.
Robin Ford. There you
Um,
go, Robin Ford.
It just
Well,
and
check this
even
out. Right?
Motown, like the Tele was the main guitar used on most of those
Well,
albums.
there's actually, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of girls seem to prefer the Tele as well. Cheryl Cole. Yeah, right. See her Telecaster.
Oh, pet.
Oh my
I love a
God.
Telecaster.
Wait, I might love my Telecaster like it's cracking guitar. Oh no, I went
Where's
into
she
Polish
from?
then.
Jamaica.
Sorry, didn't mean to offend anybody out there. But yeah, Cheryl Cole from Poland in the northeast. So this is Cheryl Crow, Chrissy Hind, Telecaster players.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, look, all right, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to give you this list because I started writing and then I just got a bit carried away.
Well,
so.
I do have a fun fact which will tie into
Yeah?
your list. If you don't cover the name,
Okay,
do have a-
shall
do
I do
have
the
a
list first?
yeah,
Okay.
go on. Do the
All right,
list.
so obviously you've got Keith, Big Keith at the top, Keith Richards,
Yep.
Springsteen, George Harrison. Taking it way back to the 50s, you've got James Burton, obviously, Luther Perkins. We spoke about him in the 50s episode, playing alongside Johnny Cash.
Oh, you did, yes. Yeah.
Mentioned Danny Gatton, like you said, Phil, Chrissy Hind. I think that's a really interesting point, the way it was kind of taken by that new wave punk movement. You've got Chrissy Hind, you've got like Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, of course, Graham Coxon from Blur, like Britpop.
Yeah.
It was successful there.
Wilco Johnson,
he's on the list. Obviously, the punk movement, like Joe Strummer. But you've also got guys like Jim Root from Slipknot. I mean, he's got his own signature.
Of course,
It's been a really popular
Yeah.
signature guitar in one of the heaviest bands ever. John Five, Marilyn Manson's guitar player.
Yeah.
John
yeah.
Five. I've just got to tell our listeners, look on YouTube, okay, and put John Five guitar collection, and I think I'm right in saying he's got a Telecaster from every year they were made. How
I mean,
cool
a
is that?
Telecaster gave us this. Like Marilyn Manson in his heyday, this is like uber heavy metal, and there's a Telecaster there. Tom Morello, all his Drop D stuff, Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of, played on a Telecaster.
Yeah.
You've got blues guys, you've got Muddy Waters, Albert Collins, the Iceman, Albert Collins, rocking a
Mr.
Telecaster.
Collins.
Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Guitar players
Yeah.
love to pull that one out the bag. Jimmy Page famously recorded Zeppelin 1, largely with the Telecaster. I think the guitar solo to Stairway to Heaven, Telecaster.
That was going to be my guitar fact.
Oh!
Oh no, Lee, you've just
Sorry.
closed his laptop.
It's
Oh,
all
Sorry.
right.
oh, no.
It's all right. I still have a Chris's corner for today, so it's all good.
Who else have I got? We've mentioned Quo, Pete Townsend, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Robin Ford, Andy Summers from The Police, Prince. You mentioned female guitar players. What about Avril Lavigne? Like bringing it,
Yeah,
and Sum 41 and like young punk pop bands and stuff like that. It just goes on. And when you look at, and obviously I played a bit of Jeff Buckley earlier. That's one of my favourite Telecaster examples. The album Grace. Just listen to the Telecaster tones that are all over that. It just it's everywhere. It's like rock, metal, pop,
And probably
punk,
one of the
soul.
most recorded Telecasters ever is probably Brent Mason's Telecaster.
Brent Mason, he's on the list as well. Brent Mason.
Yeah, Brent Mason's played on just about every country album to come out of Nashville, and he's used pretty much the same guitar for it all.
Plays on everything. Joe Walsh. He
Walsh,
used the Telecaster in James Gang,
Vince Gill.
in Eagles, Vince Gill. Alex Lifeson, that was an interesting one.
Oh, really?
He didn't instantly come to mind because I sort of see him in the later years when he was using a PRS. But I think there was an interview that said that his favourite guitar, his number one that he used to use, and he still always used for writing. He said he found it very, very creative and inspiring, is an old Tele.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just, and now this is I'll finish on this. This is an internet rumour, and if any of the listeners out there can confirm this for us, that would be great. But there's a lot of speculation online that Noel Redding let Jimmy borrow a Telecaster to record possibly Purple Haze, Hey Joe, and there was something else. But certainly those two. You type that
true.
Type that in online, and
No.
seriously,
Oh, everything
we're gonna
I knew
have to-
about
we're gonna-
music is a lie.
We're gonna
I
have to
know.
rethink the show now.
I know. When I need it confirming, because for every really strong argument where there's a guy like, yeah, I knew Eddie Kramer and he knew blah blah blah, and Jimmy did use a Tele. There's one guy that seems to really really cleverly kind of dispute that. But maybe if anyone out there has a definitive answer on that, let us know.
I think we need to go quickly into a Chris's corner before my head explodes after that. I
and
don't
before
know.
my curry arrives.
But,
yeah, so make it quick, Chris.
But just quickly going back to that fact, before we jump into the corner, the Stairway to Heaven solo, obviously I was always under the illusion that it was a Les Paul because or an SG, you always relate Jimmy Page to that guitar. But to say, you listen back to it and go, man, that Telecaster rocks. The fact they can just, deliver that sort of tone as well. It's just, it's awesome. Really cool. But yeah, I didn't even realize that until we did our first episode on the Telecaster a while back. So,
wow, there we go.
All that time.
We could do about 5 episodes on the Telecaster.
Yeah.
couldn't we?
Well, the more we discuss it, and the more time I spend with my Tele, the more I'm starting to realize that, like, I'm just constantly moving towards a Telecaster more so than a Strat.
It's my favorite guitar. I'd use this for everything. It's so good. Mine's actually really heavy, actually. But Keith Richards always preferred a heavy Telecaster. He always said it contributed to the sound of making it a little heavier.
Poppycock.
Maybe. Right, let's jump into Chris's corner.
I'm
Here we
going
go.
to cue you music. Ladies and
Go on.
gentlemen, it's that time again. Please cue the music.
So did you know, to make a pound of honey, a honeybee needs to fly 50,000 miles and visit 2 million flowers? I recently got...
Ding dong, I think my curry's here.
That is
You
true,
need-
but it
you need
isn't
to-
my corner. It isn't my corner. It is true, but it isn't my corner.
You need to explain that.
Yeah, we'll get into that next time. But I've recently restrung my Tele. We spoke a few episodes ago about that Rick Beato video about different gauges of strings and how the 9 gauge strings sound way better over the 10s and the 8s and the 11s. Naturally mixes the guitar better in a band mix and everything. So I've put 9s on my Tele. Don't like it.
Really?
Yeah, like it feels like I'm playing a toy. Everything just feels too light. Everything's
Does it feel all neck?
yeah, like
It's like
they're
all
just-
neck and
they're
no
really,
strings.
they feel really loose. The set I did an adjustment to the setup, and it's set up right, and but I've lost the sustain. Definitely isn't there anymore.
What did you have on it before? Tens.
A tens before. I've stuck with the same brand. I've always been using Diodarios. These are tens, and normally with my tens it would last a little bit longer. Just the tone is just definitely a little bit fatter. But
Right.
it's definitely easier to play. Like bends are a lot easier and everything. But just I don't know. Maybe I've been on tens for years, and I'm now debating. I've just done all my fretboards with the Monty's Relic Wax.
Oh yeah.
So I've done my Les Paul today, and I asked Phil earlier, I asked both of you guys earlier, what do I do? Do I wrap around the bridge with 9? Because I've only got 9-gauge strings. I bought a load of them. So do I put 9s on my Les Paul? Am I going to enjoy it? I don't know.
No, I don't think you will. I mean, the strings are wrapped around mine because that's how it came, and I just liked how it felt.
Yeah.
And I like how it feels on your hand as well when you're resting your hand on the bridge. I like it because you can feel the strings running all the way,
Yeah.
and I just like how that feels.
Grippish.
It just feels, especially on the Tele, it just feels I can't dig into the guitar. Like I'm just afraid I'm going to break a string. there is a notable
Yeah.
difference. I don't know. Maybe I could go 9.5s. I know that's the thing nowadays, isn't it?
Why are you doing all this then? Just because of
I
some
watched
YouTuber?
the Rick Beata video, and I was really intrigued. It came out on top, and from the audio, it did sound better. It sounded a lot clearer. There's a lot low
Yeah,
end.
but Chris,
Go
he
on.
did. They were playing a Les Paul in that video, weren't they? They were specifically looking at a Les Paul. The argument they were making, if you haven't seen the video, go online and try and find it on Rick's channel. But it was basically that back in day, all these great 70s rock albums that we all love the guitar tones, thin guitar strings were the way. And he was saying really until Stevie came along and kind of broke the mold, everyone went a different way after that. But before that, all these guys were using thin, like Jimmy Page, obviously Billy Gibbons, Jimi Hendrix, Blackmore, Malmsteen still uses 8s. Like they were using very, very thin 8s, 9s. I mean, the 10 was
8-gauge is
really, really hard to
popular.
come by.
Mm.
So, and they did this kind of blind test thing. And to be fair, I thought the 9s sounded great on the Les Paul, didn't they?
Yeah, they did sound really good. That's why I was intrigued. I thought I'd maybe stick them on all my guitars and see how they feel. But
But to be
I'm
honest,
not
though,
sold
on
at the moment.
YouTube, would you know? Would you know what sounded better, 9s, 10s, or 12s on YouTube? Would you know?
Well, it depends what you're
You
listening
really
through, I
tell?
guess. Good
Yeah.
speakers and all that. But look, this is why we need a gig, because we're getting way too into this stuff. Chris, you said today, I've got some new strings for my guitar and I've never been so excited. And just the fact that you've been researching into honeybees, again, just confirms
I
that-
wasn't researching. I actually got some honey from a place in Dorchester. It's a place called Stratton. It was
Oh, yeah.
actually from
I
a
know.
friend of the family. Actually got us a pot of honey and a jug of honey, and it came with these useful facts. I was reading them. I was outside having a beer, and I was reading them. I actually found them really interesting. Let me reel some more off to you. Here we go.
Oh, God.
So
Hang on, Chris,
I really wish
I'm
I
running
brought
out of
something stronger
port.
than water.
I'm running out of port.
don't worry, I'm not going to
Gee.
punish the audience with these.
Okay. All right. Can we do something to finish this podcast on?
Yeah.
Now, I
What do
know
you wanna
we've all
do?
got different sounds and everything, but what I want to do is just do a very brief thing on each pickup of each guitar. Okay, just to see what happens. So obviously on a cleanish type sound, because you can probably tell it better on that. So I'm going to play something, and then you guys play the same type of thing. Okay, so I'm on
a cleanest
this is-
sound, right?
Yeah. So this is the Brad Paisley Telecaster on the bridge pickup. Lee?
Yep.
And that's your 52 type reissue-ish
Yep.
type relic thing.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. Chris? Cool. Okay, so let's move to the middle.
Middle.
Lee?
Helps you have your volume up, doesn't it?
Nice. Chris? Nice, nice. Okay, so now we're going on the neck pickup. Please.
I couldn't see your fingers. Your neck was off.
Christopher. So obviously we're not hearing it properly. I mean, mine sounds really full and fat and everything, but I'm listening to my interface, and all I can hear is your guys through Zoom. So I'm really looking forward to listening back to this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't we do a sustain test? Why don't we get really nerdy? Should we do a sustain test? So,
okay. Is this with drive?
Yeah, a little bit. Not like you can't put that freak out pedal on, Phil. Phil's got this pedal that just gives you infinite sustain.
Which pickup? Are we going to do it on each pickup as well?
Just the bridge. Just go bridge.
Just the bridge. Okay. Yeah. And what note, Lee?
Chris, pick a note.
D flat.
D flat.
I'll pick a fret. Let's go 15th fret B string.
15th fret B string. And is it a bend or is it just a
bend? Go for it. Wail it.
Go
mate.
on, Lee.
Well,
go for it, Lee. You go first.
I'll go first. Do you want me to go first?
Oh no, go on, Chris. Go on.
Chris. Well, that's not fair.
Pathetic.
That's not
Pathetic. He's
sustained.
going to wear his bloody G-string out.
You should have
look.
just bent and
This
and
bloody
just
nines
held
are
it.
faded away already.
I
I'll
was
I'll hold it. I'll play again. I'll just hold the note. Okay.
Okay, go on. Okay. Did you have a noise gate on that?
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Here we go. Oh, actually. Oh, shit. I've got a noise gate on it.
This is not good listening. This is really if anyone is listening to this
We
through
can
like a
play,
Bluetooth
we can
speaker and they have a significant other in the household or they live with a roommate or something, then they think, what on earth are you listening to? just us.
Oh, for God's sake. Just do the socials. I want to go now.
Yeah, ding dong. I think Curry's here. Right. If you want to see some pictures of these Telecasters that we've been murdering tonight, then you can head over to Instagram and you can search for Phil Walker Guitar, Chris Anthony Guitar, or Lee Troy Guitar. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's Phil Walker Guitarist, Lee Williams Guitarist, and Chris Anthony Guitar. You can head to the show pages, which are Story of Guitar Heroes on Instagram or Facebook, or it's the website www.storyguitarheroes.com. And of course, there's YouTube where you can search Phil Walker Guitarist and check out the video of Phil going to Absolute Music to pick up his Brad Paisley Telecaster.
Yep.
There we have it, chaps. Another one in the bag.
Lovely.
Excellent. So, yeah, actually, when this podcast comes out, well, it comes out sort of late Monday evenings,
Yeah.
usually. So we kind of, it's like Tuesday is a real podcast day, but it does come out late Monday evening. So it'll be on Tele Tuesday. So we should put pictures of ourselves holding our beautiful Telecasters, and hashtag the Tele Tuesday thing next
Sounds
week.
good. Sounds
This
good.
week. This week, whenever you listen to it.
Next week, this week. Where are we?
Yeah.
What day?
If you're listening to it a year from now, you've missed it. It's gone. If we're still here a year from now, I don't know.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. And
it's been a very interesting episode. It's been lovely. Now go enjoy your curry, Lee.
I will do.
I'm going to have some honey on toast, I think.
I'm just going to drink more port. Good night, fellas.
Toodaloo.
Man, I love my tone knob. Whoa.